Welcome to ServiceNow Tech Bites, bringing you an inside look at our products. I'm your host, Steve Miller. Today we'll be talking with product architects Michael Thompson and Grant Hulbert about integrating IBM's Watson into the ServiceNow platform. We'll talk about how to use Watson on the platform, and we'll look at some good use cases. Stay tuned. Joining us today are Michael Thompson and Grant Hulbert from our Strategic Technology Alliance team. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we start in talking about IBM Watson, let me ask you guys to tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do here at ServiceNow. Grant?
Well, I'm a Strategic Technology Alliance's architect, which is kind of a fancy way of saying I'm a bit of a technical diplomat. So I and my team work with ServiceNow's largest, most strategic technology alliances. That means with any large company that has a technology that ServiceNow feels is strategic.
And what about when you're not here at work? What do you like to do?
Well, I kind of take a postman's holiday. I'm just the ultimate nerd. And so, believe it or not, on the weekends, my favorite thing to do is coding. Perhaps not ServiceNow coding, but I play with a lot of automation and IoT. So I'm that guy in the neighborhood who fully automated his house with Alexa and has as many systems as possible connected to the internet at home.
Sounds like an integrated lifestyle. And how about you, Michael? What do you do here?
So I work on the same team as Grant. I am a Technology Alliance consultant, easily known as a developer for our team, working with all our strategic partners. Especially, I've worked with IBM fairly closely over the last, I would say, year and a half.
Okay, and how about you when you're not at work?
So outside of work, I would say that I'm a nerd as well. Doing development. This is how this actually started. I was doing this on my free time. Other than that, big gamer. So board games, tabletop games, D&D. So.
Okay, thanks. All right, before we get started about talking about the integration, maybe you guys could tell us a little bit about just what is IBM Watson?
So Watson was actually created as a question answering system. It was built to apply advanced natural language processing, doing information retrieval, automated reasoning, and kind of machine learning. And you might remember back in 2011, they showcased it using it on Jeopardy against two of the top players where it actually won against them. On top of that, so IBM Cloud has taken Watson, and Watson has expanded into various services. Some of those services include Watson Assistant, which was formerly their conversation service for chatbots. There's Watson Discovery. There's Language Translator, Natural Language Classifier, Natural Language Understanding, Personality Insights, speech to text as well as text to speech, tone analyzer, and visual recognition, some of their services that they offer.
And I'd love to amplify on that list. So it's a giant list of really cool things that IBM provides. So a few of these. So Watson Discovery, that's a pretty short word for a big thing that they do. It's basically their way of, you can feed Discovery an enormous number of documents, and it will read through them as close as possible to the way that a human summarizer might, and find relationships and connections between those documents. And so you can imagine in the enterprise world, people wanting that, being able to feed just massive amounts of information and allow an end user to kind of explore those in different ways. Some of the other ones, pretty standard stuff. You can imagine a language translator, what that would do. Personality Insights is pretty cool. It's actually analyzing the text of the way a person reacts and giving you information about their personality. And then one that seems almost magic, although I guess in today's world probably not as magic. But the fact that we individual users have access to this technology, visual recognition. You can feed Watson a photo, just any arbitrary photo, and it will come back with structured information telling you what's in that photo, relationships, people, mountains, and how the items are connected to each other inside of the photo. So there's some real cool technology going on over there at IBM.
Does it do that for sound as well, by chance?
For sound, they have speech to text, which is obviously a well-known thing. But I've also heard that they have a sort of a music analysis. Now, it's not one that we're connected to, but Watson Labs is working on music analysis where they can actually take a full concert and break apart each individual musical instrument and the notes out of a single sound stream. So pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah, interesting. Maybe not so much the business application, but interesting technology. Well, my impression looking at these is that many of these exist, like you say, they're nothing special. They're fairly common technology. It sounds like one of the things that Watson does is integrating them all together so you can leverage the whole package at once. Is that true?
Yeah. So, I mean, you could, tie in one service with another one to help enhance it in a way. So, using Watson Assistant, which is their chat bot, you can easily tie in, the tone analyzer, the personality insights to kind of gather, what the person is like so that you know how to handle them within the actual conversation.
The other thing they've done is created this suite. So not only are they connected to each other, but the nicest thing here is that this is a cloud service. So it's Watson as a service. It means that it's very easy through simple APIs to call any one of these services and make use of them without actually having to buy any equipment or really go through any complicated sign-up process. You've just got this library of great tools, and you can use them mix and match.
Okay, and so here we have this great set of integrated tools. Now the next step is it's integrated into ServiceNow. So tell us what you did to do that.
Yeah, so we went ahead and created in ServiceNow a scoped application where we make it easy to call all of these various APIs within ServiceNow. So essentially what we've done is we've taken a look at every single of the Watson services that have available APIs to them. So if you look at Watson Assistant, for example, there's about 42 different endpoints that you can hit. We've taken all 42 of those and created the REST messages around them, the HTTP methods for them, setting all the parameters that would have to go into making these calls. And we've wrapped that all inside a script include function, which you can easily call in, 2 to 3 lines.
It's impressive work that Mike's done here for our team because it's kind of daunting. I mean, as cool as it is when you read the documentation on Watson's site, you realize quickly, wow, there's a lot of stuff there. And if I want to use it from ServiceNow, I'm going to have to do a bit of work. But Mike's done all that work, and in fact wrapped it inside of a scoped application where even the documentation is easily accessible. Sample code for all of these pieces are accessible. And so basically all of the plumbing and the drudge work of making these connections out to a service like that, Mike has already handled for you. So now it's just the smooth operation of wiring those up inside of any ServiceNow application that you feel like building. If you want Watson to do something in the back end, you can use Mike's code and not have to think about all of the details of that.
Well, that sounds like it's made it lots more convenient for users. So once a developer downloads the app, then what?
So once a developer has downloaded the application and they've installed it, and it's just installing it via an update set, really the only thing that they need to do to get it to start working is update what we call profiles, authentication profiles. So within IBM Cloud, they'll have the credentials that they'll have to get for each individual service. They'll plop that inside of ServiceNow into the table that we've created for them. And right away, they'll be able to easily connect and make sample API calls.
My favorite thing about this, again, what Mike has done is that he's contained everything inside of ServiceNow. So what that means is I don't have to, as a developer who's unfamiliar with using these services, I don't have to keep flipping back and forth between a whole bunch of different tabs, fly over to Watson, try to read some documentation there. He's contained their documentation within the ServiceNow app. So I can stay in ServiceNow. I can read a little bit of a review about how to use it. I can read the documentation, again, within the same page in ServiceNow, and even copy and paste little code snippets that are sitting right there inside of our app. So we call this a self-documenting app. A lot of apps in ServiceNow that haven't been as polished as this require you to still have some other place to go to read the docs, but we fully integrated it in. So it's a simple matter of looking at one page inside of ServiceNow and using the services from within that same page, reading the docs, and even experimenting and playing with it from in that same page.
Kind of going off what Grant said, so we've included a documentation page for each actual service, and that can be found on the application menu itself. But as you go through that documentation page, it lists out every single function that we've built inside ServiceNow and what exactly it's doing as far as the REST call itself. It'll tell you what its parameters are, so what it's expecting, what its optional parameters are, whether it's a string or an object that you have to pass into it and how you would pass it in. And then how you would call it, and then an actual response of the object itself, so that when you are making a specific call, this is the data that I'm going to get back, so I know how I can take that data and use it for my application.
I especially like that response part, because a lot of times when I'm experimenting with new services, I have no idea what it is that I'm expecting to get back. And so it was really nice to see that there's this giant JSON blob of an example of what I should see when I'm going to be doing these experiments on my own.
So you're just pointing out how the documentation is all integrated on the platform along with the application. It sounds like you've gone even farther than that, integrating Watson data itself or bringing that down to the platform. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, correct. So for certain services, there's some data that you may want to have captured inside ServiceNow. Looking at Watson Assistant, which is the conversation service, inside the IBM cloud side and the assistant side, you have to maintain a list of entities, intents, even the dialogue nodes themselves. So what we've actually done is we've taken all of that and we're ingesting all of that information and putting it in a table that you can easily read and maintain on the ServiceNow side.
Yeah, the cool thing about that is that if you're more familiar with how ServiceNow does things and you would like to manipulate your Watson information on the ServiceNow side, you can do it because it's just sitting in a table there. You don't have to go log into an unfamiliar service over on the Watson side and figure out how it is that they store it. So ServiceNow, of course, people who are more familiar with that have got all of their tricks and tips of how they manipulate that kind of information.
Yeah, and a lot of this data that actually can get imported is very helpful in other ways. So you look at the text to speech or the speech to text. So, you have to determine, especially for speech to text, what profile you actually want that text to sound like. So, do you want it as U.S. male voice or U.S. female voice or U.K., So being able to see that data inside ServiceNow and not have to go onto the IBM cloud side to try to figure out what all those are makes it so much useful.
Okay, well, that's a good look at the mechanics of the thing. Now let me ask you guys about use cases. I can imagine myself as a developer looking at all these capabilities and wondering, well, what all could I do with this? Anything to start us off thinking about?
Yeah, so with the app itself, I've been periodically including example use cases that the developers can download and take a look at to see how they would go about actually using the service for, specific needs. And one of them that I've actually built is using Watson natural language understanding and using that inside of our own virtual agent so that when a user describes their problem, it will go out to the natural language understanding service. It'll get back the information and it will grab the sentiment of that the issue that they're having. And if it meets a certain threshold, it'll actually kick it over to a live agent rather than them just going down the normal path of creating an actual incident.
Okay, well, the virtual agent application, that sounds like a really good one for a variety of business applications. Any more?
Absolutely. So speech to text is a pretty obvious one as well. Let's say you've got a call center with agents who are creating incidents. If the call's recorded, then Watson can translate it from audio to text and store that information inside of the incident record. So it's, the applications there are obvious. It makes sense that you would want to have some searchable text version of a conversation included with all of your incidents.
Would you be able to use that technology? Now, you describe it in terms of incidents, but I could see how there'd be other things. Suppose an agent were taking an order from a customer. Could you use the same thing?
Excellent point. So as sort of a backup to confirm what it was that either the customer said or the agent said. And again, because audio recordings are not searchable, but the textual conversions of those are. The applications are incredible for just being able to make sure that every bit of audio is collected as text inside of your business.
Yeah, I can see. I mean, as a consumer myself, I have a number of phone calls where I hear that my call may be monitored or recorded. Insurance companies, credit cards, things like that. I could see how all of those situations, it would be desirable for the company to have that in text form, to have it understood more than just a raw recording. That will help provide better customer service, and it will provide the company with some protection.
Absolutely.
Well, another use case that I heard about, our colleague Darius Kumari in the ServiceNow hackathon used one of these capabilities. Can you tell us a little more about that?
First of all, we had a worldwide hackathon back on November 29th, and we encouraged everyone inside the company, our engineers, anyone who joined this hackathon in the company, to use as many of our partner technologies as possible. And so Darius was able to very quickly leverage Mike's application in order to analyze sentiment for prospective leads to inform sales decisions. And we thought that was just a fantastic use of this technology.
Okay, that's great to have our own folks blazing the trail by putting this thing into use. Hopefully
right.
That'll be an inspiration to other users.
And then one of my favorite, just because it's kind of cool, is the visual analysis. I alluded to this earlier, but the idea that you can just point Watson at an image, either an image file or even a URL to an image, and have Watson analyze it and break it down into its component parts, along with percentage of what it considers accuracy. So if it's only 50% sure that that's a poodle in there, it'll tell you, I'm 50% sure that's a poodle. But there are plenty of business applications where, maybe somebody's taking a photo of an item in a factory and sending it in, and it could be somebody's unfamiliar with this area, wants to know what that item is, or if it's a broken piece and we need.
We need a replacement.
Yes, we need a replacement.
Can you send us another one of these?
Whatever this thing is. So being able to analyze complex images is really groundbreaking.
All right, now that we've piqued everyone's interest with these use cases, let me ask you guys, where can people go to find out more information about this?
We have a couple of places on our community. We have a blog post, which you can find by searching, quote, easily connect ServiceNow to IBM Watson services. That's the title of the article. And the post shows you the steps for installing, as well as a link to where you can download the application on Share. And the application was uploaded by Mike here to Share, and I'll let him introduce that one.
Yeah, so you can easily go find the application itself if you go to developer.servicenow.com. And then under Share, if you search for IBM Watson or IBM Watson Services, it'll be the first one on the list, and you can go in there. Within the actual description, there is a link back to the article that Grant was describing. So some of the other things on there is that there is a setup guide, an actual PDF that you can download. The application is there to download, as well as the example use cases that I'll put out in the future as well, can be downloaded there as well. We also are looking for any feedback So if you would like to see a particular use case example, feel free to leave it in the comments section, and I will check and try to add that as they come in.
Okay, or if users create applications or uses of their own, would you be interested in hearing about them?
We would love to hear about that. And in fact, we have a direct line back to the engineers and the product managers at IBM Watson who are very interested in finding out how people are using ServiceNow and Watson together.
Okay, well, that's good. And in fact, it occurred to me that as an additional source of information, would IBM's Watson documentation be a good source?
Their documentation does not have references to ServiceNow.
But as far as how you might use it.
How to use it, of course. IBM's cloud site has tremendous, deeper information than we provide. So our article provides a link over to their documentation. And from there, you can go wild reading much, much more in depth about how their product works.
Yeah, one of the things I forgot to mention earlier was that along with the documentation on all of the ServiceNow functions and how to call them and stuff, there's actually links in each application menu for a link out to the actual service, the IBM documentation, as well as the actual API reference documentation as well.
All right. I wanted to thank you both for the scoop on this. It's been very interesting. Thanks for coming on the program.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Please tell us what you think of this podcast. You can leave feedback or ask questions in the ServiceNow community. For more information on any ServiceNow topic, take a look at our product documentation, knowledge base, or Now Support YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.